Okay, so here's the most dreaded part of the thermodynamics topic, and that's the definitions. So the standard enthalpy change is the heat energy transferred in a reaction at a constant pressure under standard conditions with all reactants and products in their standard states. The standard enthalpy of formation is the enthalpy change when 1 mole of substance is formed from its elements under standard conditions with all reactants and products in their standard states. The bond dissociation enthalpy is the enthalpy change when all the bonds of the same type in 1 mole of molecule are broken. The lattice formation enthalpy is the enthalpy change when 1 mole of solid ionic compound is formed from its gaseous ions under standard conditions. Similarly, the lattice dissociation enthalpy is the enthalpy change when 1 mole of solid ionic compound is completely dissociated into its gaseous ions under standard conditions. The enthalpy of atomization is the enthalpy change when 1 mole of gaseous atoms is formed from the elements in its standard state under standard conditions. And just note for the enthalpy of atomization, for atomic solids such as sodium solid, the enthalpy of atomization can also be called the enthalpy of sublimation. So just be wary of that, because they may use that in an exam. The first ionization energy is the enthalpy change when 1 mole of gaseous 1 plus ions is formed from 1 mole of gaseous atoms. Similarly but differently, the electron affinity is the enthalpy change when 1 mole of gaseous 1 minus ions is formed from 1 mole of gaseous atoms. The enthalpy of hydration is the enthalpy change when 1 mole of aqueous ions is formed from 1 mole of gaseous ions. And finally, the enthalpy of solution is the enthalpy change when 1 mole of solute is dissolved in sufficient solvent so that no further enthalpy change occurs upon further dilution. They may ask you for the second ionization energy or the second electron affinity, and these are basically going to be the same definitions, but instead of 1 mole of gaseous 1 plus ions formed, it will be 1 mole of gaseous 2 plus, and it will have been formed from 1 mole of gaseous 1 plus ions. And the same kind of trend applies for the electron affinity, just we're talking about minus charges. And that's all of the definitions you need to know, and they are simplified as much as I could do them, so hopefully they'll help.